Okay, so I think I know most of you, but I'm Jesse Sims. I'm the Library Technology Specialist at Buckeye Public Library System and the chair of MCLC Tech Talk. And today we're excited to have Brandon Williams here from Mesa Public Library. He is the Library Technology Administrator, I believe, over at Mesa, and he's going to be talking about Open Plus, which has been sort of floating around in the air out here in the US, at least, you know, over the last, I don't know, maybe 5 years. I know in Europe it's much more established, but we've seen more and more libraries out here start to bring it on board. So we're excited to hear and learn from their experience out in Mesa. So thank you, Brandon, and take it away.
All right, thanks, Jesse. First off, today I'm going to just go over a presentation I made, which is a little over 30 pages, a lot of graphics and pictures that I took. So, but the presentation I'm going to hand over to Jesse, or if anybody needs me to email it to them, feel free to ask. So you don't have to take a lot of notes here, because I'm going to try not to read too fast. But let me see if I can share my screen here. Let's see, I want to just see. Share the second screen here. Everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. All right, we still good? All right, perfect. So this is just a quick Open Plus overview of Mesa Public Library. Quick graphic pulled from Bibliotheca's site kind of tells a little bit about what open access does. There are a couple different things that Open Plus is actually doing now. It's open access, open count, and open reserve. Open access will do kind of what everybody knows it's going to do with the pen pad and keypad. Let me see if I can move this. I'm not sure if that's to extend hours and allow people in the building if they have access to Open Plus, which we're going to do in the future. Open count is our occupancy counter with people counters above the doors when people walk in. Open reserve will let you pre-arrange times for people to come in. So it guarantees them a slot even if you're at occupancy. We have all three of these products. We have not set up Open Reserve yet. And currently we haven't used any of these yet, but I've tested them thoroughly, so I know that they work pretty well. First off, you're going to want to contact, of course, Bibliotheca for initial quotes for the purchase. Basically they'll ask you basically what doors you want to connect to, where you want to mount a controller box, what type of things you want to purchase, whether it's the people count or the reservation system with it. Lots of things that you can connect to the controller, from interior lights, security cameras, which will allow the system to turn on the lights as people walk in if the building's closed. And that does a lot more setup, which we didn't do at this time, which I'll go over a little bit later. Yeah, actually at Mesa, we opted against connecting to interior lights and security cameras. We updated our security cameras recently with a different project we were going through, which is basically means that we're going to be checking our cameras through a browser separate of the Open Plus application. If you did connect to the security cameras to the Open Plus, you could have a one-stop shop and have all cameras and everything on your Open Plus application monitor. During the initial process, you're going to have a lot of different pre-install meetings, which will basically let them figure out how much they're going to quote you and actually sign contracts and things. But they are very detailed, a lot of pre-checklists and things. So it seems a little daunting, but once you get past it, it's pretty easy afterwards. The meetings will be scheduled to talk about all the tech, you know, the Cat 6 and 7 cables, speakers, the controller, the door connections, the people counters. You'll have to take pictures of where you actually want to install your tech. Normally they want to see what doors there are, the ceiling heights for the cameras, all different things, whether it's going to be a wall installation or a pedestal installation if you need to put it close to the door. With all of this taking place, of course, there's a lot of hands involved in this project. What I could think of off the top of my head, the people that were involved were, of course, course, IT library staff, admin library staff to decide on a lot of different input on whether it's waiver documents and operating guidelines and hours and things, which you have to have on the initial setup for Bibliotheca to move forward. IT project management, I actually involved our actual city IT project management since I knew they were used to dealing with all the different city staff, whether it's facilities. The door contractors with our facilities has different contracts. Our cable contractors, the police department, and of course the Bibliotheca technician. Police department was interesting. They just kind of wanted to know where, of course, our security placements for cameras, but also a security assessment of the building and outside the building, since it's a lot of times you may have people coming in and out of the library later in the evenings. So that may be something you might look into too. Waiver docs and terms and conditions. Bibliotheca will actually give you some examples of what other people have used. We kind of went off of that and created our own from what it was. We did have to pass these through our legal department, which I would think everybody would want to do as well, since it is a document that people will be signing. We ended up having a waiver that's paper and a blue ink digital document, so we can have people digitally sign online. And basically that's just going to let us see who is going to have access to the system, and we'll have some paperwork to back that up. And at that point, staff will get the paperwork and set up in Polaris so that they have access. Polaris setup was pretty simple. Basically just talked to the Polaris rep, created a new user defined field. And like everyone, I'm sure you probably have all the UDF fields already populated. I removed one of ours that we hadn't used in a while and called one Open Plus, and just suggested a yes or no drop down. So our SIP2 could read when someone does a barcode and pen, whether they're allowed or not to the system. Which is basically what I said on this side. It's just a real quick SIP, just like you would do at a self-check or Envisionware or PC settings, where you just log in, barcode and pen. If the system's set up for Open Plus access at that time, it'll allow the person in if they have the yes in the user defined field. So I think the biggest part of time took for everything was kind of the drops and wiring and kind of getting the door set up. So one of the biggest confusing parts were, I think Bibliotheca kind of had a weird way of saying how long the cables could be and where the controller could be. And the documentation kind of went back and forth on that as well. So I mentioned in here that one of the things that we really need to make sure is that the controller, which I'll show on another slide, it's just the box that controls the whole system, that it's no longer than 100 feet from the actual pin pad. The pin pad will get power over PoE to power it up, and Bibliotheca provides the Cat7 cable to do this. So they don't want to over 100 feet to be doing that. Also, I think we changed our wiring on the doors to an 18.4 gauge wire, which on the picture below shows it 4 different cables. This will allow you to set up a couple different relays on the doors in case you need to, but each relay will have to have 2 wires. So I think it's right now a max of 2 relays. And this kind of shows a setup of what we have at a Red Mountain location. And this is going to be after everything's ready for Eric or a technician to come out to install. It's basically just a speaker amp, wires that go to speakers, the Cat7 cable that goes out to the pin pad outside, the actual Open Plus controller, network cable that will actually give the controller out to the internet, and then an 18.4 just relay cable that goes to the doors. So this is where we kind of ran into some issues at ours. We had 2 different doors, one at Red Mountain and one at Dobson. That one was kind of an older door that, as you see the picture below, it's a manual electric door, but you have to manually set the settings on it. We were able to get that working by putting it into exit only mode, which let us let people out, but the doors won't open as people walk up. So when people actually do type in a library card and PIN, it will actually open the doors, but then it won't allow the next person in after that. We're planning on installing new doors at Red Mountain anyways, because we've had some issues with the doors, but it will work with more of a manual operated door. At Dobson, this is our brand new door we got, which has a digital programmable door with settings. Much better, a lot easier. The door tech was able to really understand what to do with it. One of my concerns was that I really wanted the doors to be off, like completely locked when Open Plus was done. And it didn't seem like it was doing that in the current way we had it set up. So I had a second relay set up to actually force the door in a closed off mode, which made me feel better to know that when the system was not on, the door was actually in an off mode. This is a quick picture of the sensor about 3 to 5 feet from the door. So this is the occupancy sensor. This is the kind of picture you probably want to give Bibliotheca at the initial, and they'll ask you something for this. So then they can kind of get a measurement of the height of how high those cameras will be. At Dobson as well, we were going to do a pin pad on a pedestal, but we decided to do it on the door. So if you see right here, we did it right on one of our round columns, which hopefully is not going away in the future with our array model, but I think I verified that it isn't. This is a normal sensor that opens the door, any kind of door. Open Plus is actually controlling this sensor to say whether or not it's going to be on or off during usage, so the door will not open at the time. You can't see it very well here, but this is I think it's a 32-inch TV that has our displays to show whether the library is closed, how many people are in the building, which I'll show kind of in another slide. Here's our Red Mountain pin pad, which is a couple, maybe 2 feet from the door. I'm estimating, I can't remember exactly, but I looked up kind of ADA height restrictions on where we want to put these. I think it was 36 inches center, someone sitting down. But Bibliotheca did not have any advice on where to put it, so I kind of just did my own research on that. Speakers are really basic. They're just external speakers that will just mount to the wall. Again, just red black wires are ran to the controller inside the library. I haven't really tested this actually, where we can record and upload our messages to the system. This will be used, of course, if we're not open and we allow people access after the library is closed. It'll tell them in increments. You can schedule different recordings to go out saying, library will be closing in so many minutes. They do have examples of that as well from Bibliotheca to set up. Here are the actual people counters that I received. Not sure what they'd be sending if anybody decided to go forward with this. Decent camera. I've got some similar cameras, some SenSource cameras for the main library, which does not have Open Plus, but really similar. So I think anything's going to be the same here if they change. The cameras come packed and with no wires or anything, so which was fine because you'll just connect it to a PoE switch and it'll power off the Ethernet cable. But the access points did come already hard static IP'd, and you'll have to kind of do a little finagling to power up the actual camera with your own PoE injector, and then connect it to a laptop, which they have in documentation to kind of show you how to then reset some of the settings, reset it back to DHCP, grab your own network IP, and then give that IP to Bibliotheca technicians, and they'll remote in and set up the cameras with you after that. The cameras are counting in real time, and what that does is it passes the data over to the Open Plus system that will keep track of how many people are in the building for occupancy counts. This kind of shows you kind of what you'll see in the browser with the IP that you'll get. It just hosts a session straight from the IP. This is at our Red Mountain location, and you'll actually see that they'll draw different lines, and they can set up some different paths as well, but this is just a simple line right now to show in and out gate counts. You'll get some different heights and things as well, so it can kind of measure how high someone is. I think that the system can actually tell if it's kids or adults walking through. And of course, it gives you different gate counts as well, which I'm hoping I can get some reports set up to send via email daily, weekly, monthly, however it is, so we can get our counts correctly out to people that need them. Okay, so after the camera is set up, this is actually also a website from Bibliotheca that lets you set up when the cameras should be showing occupancy or not. So before 10 o'clock, the displays will say the library is closed. Right now, I'm having this at Red Mountain here showing 30 walk-ups allowed. So as people walk through, once the count gets to 30, the doors will lock, and the screen will tell you to wait for someone to leave to enter the building. This is where you actually set up your days for the cameras. So from 10 to 5, I have them set 60-minute time slots for 30 capacity. Quickly and easily set up. So this is what you'll see at the doors. Right now I have the TV at Dobson. We don't have a lot of room at Red Mountain, so we're looking at possibly just putting a tablet that's going to face the door so they can see the different occupancy and whether or not they're allowed to come in. Right here it shows 12 to 30. You can actually do that as percent, a number of percent, where you could just say like 50% occupancy if you don't want people actually counting people in the building and kind of having an issue with that. So I think that's what they told me, that you can kind of do a percentage instead of a number. These are displays that you can set up inside the building. So if you have any TV displays in the building, you can kind of see, and staff can see what's going on as people in there, so you don't have to go to the front door. Any of these screens can be configured on PC, tablet, phone, whatever has a browser with a cookie. That's the key. The cookie will stay on that browser. So anytime you go to the site, it'll go to the screen you have set up. And that is a quick setup too. And you'll be able to do that on your own and create as many screens as you like and customize the text as well. This is the same spot here that's actually showing, if for some reason I know we just open and let's say Dobson showing at 6, we can actually click that down. You can open up this website on a cell phone. Again, it would populate the cookie on the cell phone. So once you went to the site, it would always just open up straight to this spot. You could then plus or minus the amount of people in the building, so you can quickly fix different things that may be happening with the real-time counting. So this is actually a program you'll get installed on your computer. That is the Open Plus controller config. It lets you choose whether you're closed, staff, or self-service, and you can kind of see the different logs of what's happening on the system. Whether it's running, whether it's off, you can actually reset the system from here as well. Let's see here, plus, I believe that's on the next slide here. This is actually letting us see where I'm actually setting up Open Plus to let people in, whether it's self-service, which is going to be require a barcode and PIN, or then staffed, which means the doors are in full operation mode, but the system continues to count people in and out, and you could use that occupancy counter to then close the doors if you reach occupancy. Quick setup. This is actually also where you'll see the sounds playing, whether the door is going to be locked or not. Everything's all set up to this quick and easy calendar setup, which is configured through Bibliotheca at first, and they kind of show you how it works. And reporting is, since we haven't really been open much, it's just me kind of walking back and forth, or possibly park and pick up at Red Mountain may have doors to use at times. But the reports, as you see, there's a lot of tabs on the bottom that lets you get through a lot of different granular things. Again, I'm hoping that these reports will be able to let me email out, so I don't have to come in here and set up the same default report and send out monthly things. But I think it will be good on that too. And I think I just ran through it pretty quick. And if anybody has questions, I think that's it for me.
All right. I know I have a few questions. Does anyone
All right.
have any questions before I fire away? All right. So I know you talked about coming up with that document that the customer has to sign for
Yes.
Open Plus to use unstaffed, use the library during unstaffed hours. I know some libraries started that way and then eventually opened it up to all customers if they were in good standing. I don't know, is that something you guys have looked at or considered exploring, making it available to everybody if they're in good standing?
I think that would depend on, I think, the time. Right now, I could see us using this system for our early hours. You know, we do a lot of hours before we open from 9 to 10.
Right.
And a lot of staff aren't, they're in the building, but they're not helping patients. So I could see us using it that, but I think for now, we're going to actually have them do the waivers, and then we'll see kind of what issues come up. If it's, you know, there's no issues, I'm sure we could look at that, but so they basically allow just all users.
Yeah, if they're in good standing. I think it was Gwinnett County that mentioned
Okay.
starting it as a small pilot this way, where you had to do it, and then they eventually opened it up because they didn't see issues.
And was it the full library or a room or a blocked off area?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I believe it was they had started this in 3 of their branches, and so they rolled it out, you know, as a pilot, and then rolled it out to everybody in those branches that was in good standing. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then my other question was, and this might be a better question for Bibliotheca, but I'm sure you guys have looked at this, and it sounds like you thought about it a little bit with the door and forcing it into off mode, which is like security considerations because it is kind of connected to the internet. What kind of security considerations there are having your front door connected to the internet?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was concerned about too, with like if that scheduler kind of has an issue, will it stay in staff mode and the door just stays open?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to make sure that we could tell that when it's closed, there is a relay that actually shut off the door just like we would any other time. But it's not stopping staff to, especially on an electronic door with the digital, if they turn that into off mode, the system could turn that back on. So I think we'd have enough to see, but you can see it, what the system state is at any time. So maybe there would be a way that Bibliotheca could actually send out some email or text alerts.
Yeah.
Yeah, if some other state was changed that you weren't aware of, or
Yeah.
Like the default power state, if the power goes off in the building,
Right.
it should be default locked.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thought to have a notification of some sort on there. Cool. Do we have other questions? I know, I think I saw Lee on the call from Scottsdale, I believe, who's also working through this project over in Scottsdale. Do you have any, I'd love to hear some feedback from what your guys' experience has been so far. I think you're muted.
Hey, Jesse, this is Becky from
yes.
Scottsdale.
Mm-hmm.
Lee is on the phone, but he's also in the middle of a couple of other conversations. So
okay.
I can speak a little bit to what we're doing at Scottsdale. We're just kind of behind, following somewhat of a similar path as Mesa, but not quite as far ahead as they are. We're not going to be using Open Count, at least not initially, but we have decided to use Open Plus for our Appaloosa branch, which is our furthest branch north. And we're going to be opening it without staff during kind of typical business hours. That particular branch has a drive-through location, so our drive-through is going to be operational with staff, and then the building is going to be open with Open Plus without staff. The plan is initially Monday through Saturday, so 6 days a week, probably about 4 hours a day. We are waiting for Bibliotheca to send the equipment, so we're not been able to get started on the pre-checklist that Brandon mentioned, but we are also in the process of getting a new front door installed. We decided to replace the door as opposed to modify our current door, which has manual locks on the bottom to open and close the door. So that's kind of where we're at. We're expecting to open early February and looking forward to it. We've gotten a lot of help from Brandon and the Mesa Public team, so we appreciate that, and have worked with our legal department to get the agreements finalized. So basically the library operational pieces are well underway, and we're just working and waiting for the new door to be delivered and then installed. And fortunately, we're using the same vendor that Mesa is using, DH Pace. So I was curious, Brandon, if you were able to get the door to communicate with Bibliotheca. I think when we saw you, you had just gotten the door installed and you were still working on that piece.
Yeah, definitely. The Dobson door that you were looking at is quite a bit better than the Red Mountain one, of course, because it's newer. But that's the door that we actually did the 2 relays on, which was kind of new to Bibliotheca as well, using 2 relays. But we finagled it enough where we used another setting on the calendar to say that the door would close and it would actually go to lock. So yeah, everything worked great on it, and the tech seems like he's pretty aware. We've had a couple of the DH based techs, and I think they're getting a little more aware of how this is set up. And they said they've had some similar things with secure access and things too. So
Okay,
I
good.
think they'll be good.
Yeah, if you don't mind, do you mind if we touch base with you offline to see what text you use? Because we just soon have the same guys that came out to Dobson come out to Appaloosa and install our door. They'll be a little bit further ahead than
Sure.
someone who is not familiar.
Sure.
And then Brandon, do you guys have a timeline for when you're opening? I know you were talking about opening your libraries with staff. Is that still the first step, your plan, or has that changed?
Yeah, we're still going to be opening with staff. Right now we have a grab and go service at the main library from 1 to 5. And then we're doing park and pickup, of course, in the morning from 8 to 11. We have had a couple dates that have pushed back, of course, like everybody else. I think we're looking more in January to open now, but again, that may be pushed back as well, depending on what's going on with everything.
Yeah, great. And then I might have missed it because I logged in a little bit late. I saw that this is recording. So Jesse, is this going to be sent out, or you've got a lot of great information, Brandon? It's a little more techie than for me, but our tech group, I'm sure, would be happy to review what you've included. So
Yeah,
just wondering the recording.
I'll definitely get that emailed out. Are you on the Tech Talk listserv? Do you know, Becky?
I am not. No.
Do you want to just drop your email in the chat and then I'll get you added?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Mm-hmm.
Thanks for doing this topic.
Yeah, of
and
course.
Brandon, thanks for all your help.
Yeah, and I'll give out the presentation too, so everybody can kind of just look at it on their own and not have to take as many notes. Hopefully they would have. I kind of read it through kind of quick.
Right. So let's see. I kind of thought of one other question as you guys were talking back and forth, which is, I mean, obviously this type of product is not cheap, you know. It can obviously bring back a lot of value for its cost, but then that gets me to my question, which is like, do you guys have preset metrics for success, or is it just hard to really plan around that because of the pandemic? You don't know what your foot traffic's going to look like. I mean, what was the kind of conception of what use you would get out of it?
Well, I believe, signed up for it before pandemic. So the occupancy thing was a great thing to hear, the open plus count, because that kind of played on us being able to not have to police the doors for people going in and out of the building. So to me, success at the beginning, I'm hoping that occupancy counter really does allow people to go in and out, and staff will be comfortable knowing that there's only 20 or 30 people in there. And hopefully the signage, I think we're going to do an A-frame sign out front that will kind of tell people if the door doesn't open, please be aware there's occupancy guidelines or something. And then they can look in the door and kind of see that, 30 of 30, please wait for another user to leave. And I'm just hoping it'll kind of get people more comfortable knowing that the doors are just locked, or that we don't have to just send people out as they come in because we're over capacity. So that's the first thing we're going to be using. So as far as how successful it is, I'm just hoping it works well and seamlessly, which everybody knows tech doesn't always work the way we want it. But with all the testing I've done as a one occupancy or a two occupancy, walking around the building so I don't go out the counter again, got a lot of steps in, and it denied me. So that was good. Right. But as far as the actual Open Plus with barcode and PIN letting people in, I think we just still have to decide when we want to go to that endeavor and figure out the hours we'd want to do it. I'm not really sure what we're deciding on yet. But again, when we do, we are going to require that waiver form. So it's going to be minimal people at first, because I don't think a lot of people will sign up like offhand quickly. So hopefully it'll be a slow go live and kind of be able to monitor what's going on and work out the bugs.
Right. Yeah. And I was kind of asking that question because it is such a big undertaking, and it's a huge shift conceptually from how libraries traditionally are ran, by having the unstaffed hours, at least for us public libraries. Do you guys have like a longer concept of how you want to see it employed in, within the next 5 years, or is it really kind of like, let's get our feet wet and see where it takes us?
I think we have to see where it takes us. If we have these big grand designs and then we do have issues, I'd hate for everybody to think, oh, we can't do this now. I just want to see that it's going to work. I know that there's a lot of, my thoughts are there's tech in the building, hopefully there's not staff areas that can be kind of accessed, but really though, since we are opening the full buildings, we kind of have to see what's going to happen. We have a lot of nice video cameras now that we just installed. Of course, they'll be recording, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we're going to have security on premises or a staff person on premises at first, or how we're going to do it. So it will be interesting when we finally decide to open it up this way.
Yeah. And how about Becky, you in Scottsdale? Kind of similar questions. Do you guys have like a longer strategy for it, or are you really also just trying to see how it works?
Similar to Mesa, we were exploring this option pre-COVID, and actually our plan was to put it in one of our senior centers, and a space, I should say, in the senior center, and provide library materials in that space. So basically kind of have a library in a non-library location. So one of the great things about the software is it's movable, so we can move it at some point to another location. So that's a possibility, but we're probably initially going to, as I mentioned, it's going to be used when staff will not be in the public space, but they'll be in the non-public space providing service to the drive-through. But I anticipate it's going to probably expand beyond when staff are in the building at all. But it is too early for us to say as well. And we're kind of excited to just get it started with having staff in the building, although not providing services, because it's kind of a safe way to start. But I envision that depending on what happens with COVID, we may just continue to add on time during the day, and eventually we'll probably get to a point where it's open during when there's no staff in the building whatsoever.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we looked at it, and one of the things I was most excited about is our space and a library is so valuable, and yet it's so expensive because we have to have staff there every time we want the public to use that space. So considering how to give people access to that space without that high overhead. Cool. Well, hey, we have a question here in the chat from Linda. It says, when someone gains entry via barcode PIN, is there any way to monitor how many people enter while the door is open?
Yeah, good question. That was mentioned by Bibliotheca, and we said that at the beginning as well. It looks like a lot of the waiver files and documentation that people are having people sign states as you enter the building, it's you with no one walking behind you. So you're not supposed to just have the old train come through and, have one person open and then 5 are coming in. I don't think there's really a way, we could see it through our cameras. And if it's like a repeat offender that's letting people in, we could deny access to the service. But as far as it actually doing that, our counters, of course, will count those people going in. We could kind of see how many people actually did a barcode and PIN and kind of monitor the count going in with the people counters. But at the exact time, there isn't really a way. At Dobson, I worked with the door vendor to have the door open and close at a quicker rate. When it did open, it didn't stay open as long as it would during normal operating hours. Of course, safety precautions, and from the door vendor's perspective, they didn't want it to open and then to just immediately close and slam people in there, because that's their legal installation of what they're doing. But yeah, that definitely, it was a concern for us too. So I think our biggest thing is that if we saw that happen, we probably discuss it with them and look at even taking away access if needed.
Right. And then Peter brought up a good follow-up question here related to this. What's the policy regarding parents and minors?
I'm not sure offhand without reading the document in front of me, but definitely we did talk about having the parents come in, and I believe they would take their kids in as well. Of course, not without having to barcode in. And Heather has input too here.
This is Heather. So yes, if it does say in the agreement that if you are with your children and they're underage, then they can come in with you. We are not issuing Open Plus access to anyone. I can't remember, Brandon, did we decide under 16 or under 14?
I think it was.
So they would have to go in with a parent who has the access.
Yeah.
They can't go in by themselves.
Yeah, it's
Correct.
16.
16?
Yeah.
Okay.
16.
Good question. So we had these same questions as well, and we had to kind of include them in our documentation.
Yeah. And then maybe just if you guys could talk for a little bit about just the process. Like, we were excited, we were looking at it, and then we presented it to our previous community services director, and we're just sort of given a hard no right away. So like, what was the kind of process to work through? Because there are so many different components that you sort of have to get on board. What was that process like for you guys? How long was that timeline? Did you start these conversations 2 years ago, a year ago? What was that like?
It was a while ago.
I'll take that one. So
Yeah.
Jesse, you're right. Bibliotheca has been talking about this for a good 5 years, Brandon.
Yeah, it's been
And
a
Brandon
while.
and yeah, we've been very interested for a while, and they know that. So they come back and talk to us all the time. And we're very lucky that our city manager is interested in trying new things. So we told him about it a while ago. We were originally thinking kind of like Scottsdale, we were going to try it with a different location. We were going to try it with our express library. But the pandemic came and Open Plus added the occupancy piece and the reservation piece. And he actually okayed for us. So Mesa did get CARES dollars directly to the city. And we were able to use those CARES dollars to purchase the new doors and the Open Plus. So we're lucky our city manager is excited and interested in it. So it wasn't a hard sell for us.
That's great. Yeah, having the city manager on board, that really helps. And what about in Scottsdale? What was your guys' experience like with getting the powers that be on board with this new service?
I think that one of the major things that helped us is that we had the full support of municipal security. And that was really the way we pursued it initially, is to get buy-in from municipal security that they were comfortable with us opening the building without staff. When we had the director of security tell our assistant city manager that he had no problem with it, he was completely comfortable with it, that had a huge influence for us. So I think that was the real key piece, is convincing him that it was a safe idea. And we got a lot of information from other libraries, Ventura County, for example, who've been using this for years and years, and helped make that sale really to municipal security. And then our assistant city manager agreed as well. Certainly the fact that our library was closed and we had no branches open at the northern end of the city was another major factor. We currently have, or we did at the time, 2 libraries open. Both are in the more southern area of our city. And this is opening access to another area of our city that was previously not being provided services. And then I think the other thing is choosing the location. The location that we chose has a very steady patron population, and the demographics were such that it's a great place for us to pilot it.
Awesome, thank you. And we have a few questions here in the chat from Chris, so I'll go through these one at a time. First one, probably for Brandon, if you know, how long do you guys keep your recordings?
And this is video recordings probably.
Yeah.
This is a brand new system for us. Literally just came up this last month through our PD security team. I believe they said 30 days. Anna, did they tell you kind of how long they would keep footage that you could ask for, request? I think it was 30 days.
I think it was too, but I think we'd have to double check. But I think Adam said 30.
Yeah. And that doesn't have anything to do with Bibliotheca or Open Plus, and that's just a city security system throughout the whole city where they just have a new cloud-based security.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess I can read my own questions. So really quick, apologies if I missed it. Ballpark,
Sure.
What does this cost?
Yeah, that I think was a big sell to the city manager. Actually, I told him, I believe Heather, was it 15,000? Yeah, it was right on 15,000, and I thought 15,000. Of course, with anything, you're going to have subscription costs and all that. I don't think the subscription is 15,000 a year, though. It was just the initial cost of the product and all that. And of course, we have
location.
15,000 for each location. Yeah.
For each location. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have to have IT staffed on call or be on call during all those non-staffed hours? I mean, does someone always have to be available in case some kind of technical problem goes on?
I hope not. But no, I don't know. I'm trying to think as far as IT staff on call, what's involved. It's all web-based. Now that we have security cameras, we can really tap in to see it being off-site. I don't know. I would think possibly, if someone's saying they can't get into the door, and they somehow get a hold of them, we'd have to have some type of number, I guess, out there to say if you have any issues. But yeah, that could open up a whole nother can of worms. I'm not really sure.
To end with probably the biggest can of worms, and again, I don't know if this is the right venue to discuss this, but has there been any pushback about the fact that if this is successful, that might mean libraries are like, oh, hey, we don't need to hire more staff. We don't really need that many librarians. We're good with automating. So. Well,
pie in the sky, when everything looks good, it's like, wow, we could open a library, no staff, people come in and out. We could be open for 24 hours a day, things like that were brought up. I haven't gotten any pushback from it, honestly. But I do see where you're going with this. I would think it could be better if for some reason we had staffing concerns and there weren't enough staff to open a building. Maybe we could open it with Open Plus. Or of course, extended hours are great. And if we had talks about lowering our hours, we could do these hours with Open Plus. So I would hope it's not going to affect like our normal day-to-day operation, because it's not really taking away from any of that. It's only, I would think, extra hours or hours that have issues with staff.
Right. Got it.
Chris, we keep pitching it as expanded access.
Okay.
So that's how we've pitched it, is it's allowing us to expand access. I think, again, we have a great city manager who is a library supporter. He totally understands the value of face-to-face customer service, all the in-person things that we can do, but he also understands there's a lot that can happen without staff intervention. And so the idea of people being able to run in on a Sunday and grab books because we can't afford to staff the library on Sunday is, he totally gets it. And I think the pandemic has helped to prove the point, you know, of how valuable and how much people miss being able to come into the library and interact with the staff and go to the programs and all those sorts of things. So Open Plus does not replace that.
Okay, well, that's good. Yeah, no, I'm more concerned about that slippery slope, but I mean, it's good that you have someone that works with you for that. And then speaking about, because it's a pandemic, if you were to do non-staffed hours during COVID, is there any concern about not cleaning, like not disinfecting things between people's uses when there's no staff there? Or is that not going to be a scenario likely to take place?
Well, even when we're going to be hopefully in January, we are going to have, of course, the signs everywhere to say, you know, 6 feet, wash hands. But with computers especially, we are going to have wipes and things around all areas, and hopefully showing that, you know, please wipe before and after use. I did buy some keyboards that are fully submersible, waterproof, so people can really slather stuff on, and hopefully the keyboards will hold up. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's still kind of on the patron to kind of know that, just like you would go into any other store, you just really have to do what you can to stay safe. But yeah, I don't know when we're going to be actually open the building during this COVID process, and hopefully it's soon, but we don't have any timelines to do that yet.
Got it. Okay, well, no, thank you both very much. Definitely going to follow with interest to see how it goes for you guys.
Okay.
All right, do we have any other questions? You can throw them in chat if you want, or just chime in. Okay, I don't hear anything else coming through. I'll start to wrap up here. If anybody has any last things, they can throw it in chat. Yeah, so this is exciting to see it finally kind of come to fruition, and it's interesting sometimes how you work on a project for years, or and all of a sudden, like when it rolls out is the time you really need it, right? Like with the door count stuff and the Open Plus stuff. So it's really cool to see it kind of finally come out, and you know, kind of like to Heather's point, this service, at least for me and us in Buckeye, it's like, this is a way to augment our services. You know, our library's at our best when we have staff and programming and that engagement with the community, but this is to augment that, to let folks in the building, you know, for much more hours than we could ever actually staff, you know. So, okay, cool. Well, if there's no other questions, I did send a thing out. I don't know if anybody brought anything, if anybody has any free resources that they've been playing around with, or even just a cool new feature. It doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It can be small, that they'd like to share. When I sent the survey out over the summer, that was one of the topics people were interested in. So if you have anything, you can drop it in chat or unmute and let us know what it is. So if nobody has anything, I'll go first, and then we'll see if anybody hops in. I actually did a webinar yesterday with Laura Solomon. I didn't do it, I watched it. And she mentioned this website called Ugly Holiday Sweater, where you can design your own ugly holiday sweater. and get it printed up. Unfortunately, the date already passed before when it would be shipped before Christmas. So I'm gonna have to remember it for next year. But it's kind of fun to just get on there and play around, and you know, things are very heavy right now in the world, so it's nice to have a little bit of levity. Cool. Anybody have anything else?
I did want to ask something to everybody, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody having Boopsy out there getting to go over to Solus, the new app that bought them out?
No,
Jesse, do you guys have Boopsy?
no, we have Communico.
Okay.
No, so Solus bought out Boopsy?
Yeah, and Solus is partnering with Polaris as well, so it looks like it's going to be a pretty good partnership. And they do have some great videos to show that their new apps look good. They also have a free curbside service application, which looks nice. That kind of has an app on a desktop that'll communicate with the people outside. So, just curious, because we're on our way to doing it. I just want to see who else had it or who's going to be kind of pursuing that.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because Boopsy was like they were kind of first to market, but their interface was always pretty clunky. And
yeah,
I'm glad to hear that Polaris is kind of finally starting to realize that companies like Communico, like why is there a third-party company doing this? Why can't you guys do this? You know, why don't you guys have modules? So that's good to hear. When are you guys planning on doing that?
I'm in the process now. They say they want to onboard everybody by January, which I think is kind of unrealistic, but because with Apple ID and apps and Play Store, now you really need, they need more than a couple of weeks to do that. But I'm just trying to push it through quick, just so we can get it just going again. So hopefully in January sometime.
Right. Let's see. We have a question here in chat from Stacy. Is anyone using Discord to program or for team communications? Chandler's working on doing gaming programs on Discord and setting up team special servers. Ooh, that's interesting. Anybody doing anything with that?
Sorry, I'll unmute. I can talk about it a little bit more if anybody's interested in learning what we're planning on doing. With it, we are running virtual gaming programs, like we're having a Among Us tournament on December 22nd for our teams, where they'll be using 5 different Discord chat rooms to be able to interact with 10 other teams at a time through voice channels to be able to run this program. We're also going to do a Pathfinders program on Discord in January, and then also in January, we're planning on setting up servers that will be staffed by library staff to occasionally check in and moderate and ensure that the teams are interacting in behaviors that we typically allow in the library. We also are working on trying to set up a teen reference desk through the Discord, where we would have an hour a week, maybe an hour a day, where a teen librarian or a teen specific programmer would be around to answer any teen questions or just to kind of interact with the teens as we see fit. We thought it would be a great way to interact with our teen advisory council, and then eventually, if we wanted to do any gaming specific adult programs, another just feature we could do with adults too. So we were just wondering if anybody else was doing anything similar or had any tips and tricks. I've gone to a few webinars on libraries using Discord, but I was just wondering if anybody nearby was doing it.
I haven't seen anybody doing that, but that sounds really intriguing and interesting. Let me know how that Among Us tournament goes.
We're a little bit scared we're going to get too many people.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, that sounds really neat. Cool. All right. Do we have any other questions or any other thoughts or ideas to throw out there? All right. Well, thank you, Brandon. And thank you, Becky and Lee from Scottsdale, and Heather as well, for hopping on and sharing your experience with Open Plus. Like I said, I'm excited to see it finally actually be here physically, and excited to see how it allows us to expand the ability for our publics to use these spaces that are so amazing. So I appreciate everybody coming today. Like I said, this is recorded, so I'll try to get it up on a little YouTube and send out the link as well as the link to the slides. And if nobody has anything else, thank you for coming, and we will see you guys in the new year. I believe the next one is in March, so it will probably still be virtual at that point. So, all right, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Josie.
All right, bye.
Bye.